Hello everyone, welcome to my review of the NOC Knives DT-03 Chef. As you can see, this is basically a folding chef knife from the company NOC or NOC. If you're like me, I had never heard of them until I saw this knife on Love Them Knives channel, and I just figured I had to have it. So here's my quick review of it. I'll be going over what I like, what I don't like, and what I think is just okay. So here we go. Alright, so first off, some basic size comparisons so you can get an idea of how big this is. All the specs will be in the description box, but for visuals, there's a standard US quarter, and then the closest thing I have to a really common knife right now is this Microtech Ultratech. It's about the same size as an Ultratech lengthwise, much taller obviously. And here's a CJRB Feldspar. A little larger on that, maybe. About the same length also. So it's kind of a medium-large, full-size knife, I'd say. Nothing small for sure. Alright, so with that done, let's get into the good. First thing that's good about this knife is the action, and goddamn is it really good. Blade wants to fall shut, snaps open with authority, it's super smooth, and the finger hole here works fantastically. It's just a really fun, addictive action. I've been carrying this for about 2 weeks. Haven't stopped playing with it since. Sorry it's a little difficult to keep this large knife in frame here under the camera, but it's very, very satisfying to play with. Also on the good side is the blade here. You always want a good blade in a chef's knife, and this is no exception. This is a piece of VG10 steel. Relatively thin stock. I'll put the exact measurements in the description along with the behind the edge measurement, but relatively slicey and given this beautiful polished stonewash finish. It's not what you'll want for very heavy tasks given the fine tip, but it's very good for, see if I can get that tip in there. There we go. Very good for cutting up fruit, vegetables, stuff like that. I'll use to chop up apples and pears and potatoes and tomatoes and things like that, and works out very well, surprisingly. Speaking of the good blade, one of the other reasons it's so good is that, as you can see, the edge sits well below the handle. So if you have normal size hands, unlike me, I have XL hands, you can get this down into a cutting board or a flat surface without hitting your knuckles. As I said, I can't quite do that because I have very large hands, but that's what it's intended to do. So, +1 for that. Now lastly, on the definitively good side is the price. This cost me $100 shipped. That's VG10 titanium, great action, great blade, all that, $100. I did have to buy it from Amazon. We'll get into that later when it comes to availability. But yeah, pretty good. For this quality and this design, I think you're getting a lot for your money. Now they also make a M390 version, I believe called the MT-03 instead of the DT. I couldn't find that in stock anywhere, but it seemed to be selling for between $130 and $160. So if VG10 isn't something you're into, you can hunt that down. Now on to what's just okay. These are things I don't really feel strongly about one way or the other, or things that didn't really influence my decision in buying this, and wouldn't influence my decision on whether or not to sell it or keep it, but things I felt that you should know anyway. First off is, this handle is kind of busy. There's a lot going on here, as you can see. There's these dimples here, there's a lateral milling. There are these slots here with these screws in them. It looks kind of cyberish to me. I'm not usually all for that aesthetic, but in this knife I think it actually works okay. Still, you might not be into it. My main concern with this pattern is that this screw right here and this screw here don't actually do anything. See if I can get in there. No, I don't have a light available with me, but just take my word for it. Those screws just sit in there and do nothing. They don't go into anything, they don't stop anything. It's not a blade stop. They're not holding a liner in place. They're just there. So I think what they did was they put them in here to match this side. But to me it's just kind of weird. There's just extra parts for no reason. It's nothing really that can fail, but I thought it was strange, so I thought I'd mention that. Next up on the okay is the ergonomics. The ergonomics are fine. They're not bad. They're also not really good. There's no hot spots per se. Nothing really digs into my hand to make it uncomfortable. I'm sure I can cut with this all day. But at the same time, I feel all of these edges and all these angles. in my hand. It just feels like there's a lot going on. I'm not really a fan of that, like I said. But just like the aesthetic, I guess I can get over it. Now here's one thing that almost made it to bad. It's, as you can see here, see if I can get that in focus, the heel of the blade here ends way before the scale. So sharpening this on an angled sharpener was quite a pain in the ass. As you can see, I ended up nicking the scale here and here, because the way the angled sharpener works, it goes in like this, and I could not get an extreme enough angle to get down to this heel without nicking the scale. That's kind of necessary for the chef type aesthetic they're going for here. But I don't know. It's not a pleasure to sharpen because of that. It's really difficult to get down there with an angled system. I haven't tried freehand. I'm not particularly good at freehand. But I guess your mileage may vary there. That's one thing that kind of annoyed me. Now let's get to the bad. I only have really two bad things to say about this knife, and neither of which are a deal breaker at all. First is the availability. It took me a while to find this knife in stock. White Mountain Knives lists it, but don't have them in stock most of the time. It seems they buy a small batch and then sell out just as quick. I found this one on Amazon. Like I said, it was actually in the country for a reasonable price, so I ordered it there. And the only other option would have been ordering one from China through DHgate or AliExpress, which I'm not usually a fan of. Those can be a little shady and they take a long time to arrive, so yeah, it is what it is. Secondly is it didn't come very sharp out of the box. Honestly, if I didn't have to sharpen this thing out of the box, like if it would even cut paper, I wouldn't have noticed this little problem here with the heel of the blade. But because I had to sharpen it, that's how I noticed that. The blade out of the box was just terribly dull. They did a horrible job sharpening it. The bevel was even, but it couldn't cut paper. Couldn't cut hair, obviously. It could barely cut cardboard. So that's something I definitely need to work on over there. If you have a basic sharpening setup, it's easy enough to fix. Just beware of that heel. So that's about it for this NOC Knives DT-03 Chef. This is one of my favorite new knives I've picked up lately. I'm glad I happened to see that Love Them Knives video, because I would have never known this existed otherwise. So if you're looking for a folding chef knife, maybe you already have, whoops, it's hard to do that under the camera. Maybe you already have a Spidey Chef or a Liang Ma cuff. Try this one out. It's pretty solid, and for $100 you can't really go wrong. So, thank you.